Hello students. In this video lesson, we are going to see about uh, the rest of the novel. So, I will be summarizing as well as I will be giving you the analysis of the parts. Okay. This chapter, this begins with the description of father, Father Cody. Okay. So, you can see in the first line it says, "See father, he is big and strong. Father, you will play with, and Jane. Father is smiling. Father smile, smile, smile. Okay, so this is the description given about the father here. So Kohli breed love. When he was a very small child itself, his mother just abandoned him by making him in a blanket and putting it in on a railway line. And then we find only its great aunt Jimmy who took care of Kohli breedlove. So he did not have any kind of love of family, father, mother from his father and mother, and so Kohli he developed a kind of inferior complex because of that. He did not. His father was also a not very good man. He was a drunkard, and he also abandoned him in a very early stage itself. So we find he is raised by Aunt Jimmy, and he doesn't have much of the exposure to the love and kindness and anything like that. So we find him as a very a child who is seeking for love. Okay, and then we find that when he is going to school only, he will be getting into get he gets into touch with a man called Samson Fuller. Okay, so after Samson getting Samson Fuller in his life, like he will be giving him some things, and he will be taking care of him in a very good way. So we find Kohli Breedlove will becomes very much attached towards Samson Fuller. And then we find he also comes to later he quit the school, and he takes a job in Tyne's feed and grain store. So when he goes there, meets a nice old man called Blue Jack. Okay, and this Blue Jack, he show him full of kindness. Okay, he will be giving him some things to think, and he will be sharing his stories, and he will be sharing most of the ghost stories. And he made Kohli feel that he is also a lovable person. So we find Kohli loved Blue, and they were all together. And most of the time, Kohli allowed to spend his time with Blue. And then we find Aunt Jimmy becomes sick, and then we find she is treated by a person. Okay, she is treated by a kind of midwife. They are called as healing women, and the one who came for Aunt Jimmy is called as Ma Dear. Okay, so it's Ma Dear, and we find he expects Kohli expects Ma Dear to be a very elderly lady, like a grandmother. But we find, to his surprise, she is a very young lady. She is very looking very young, and she is also very beautiful. So he is admiring him. And then we find after that, Aunt Jimmy passes away, and then we find Kohli is left with no one there. Okay, so we find during that funeral, Kohli comes in contact with some of his cousins, and we find Kohli has also developed a kind of sexual instinct in him. Okay, so he has not been raised properly, and he has not been loved by anyone. So he has got that sexual instinct in him, and he tried to try that with the other girls, whomever he met. So we find one day he sees Darlin. Okay, so Darlin comes him with as well. And then when they are just playing with when these two are playing, we find Kohli, he gets an instinct to touch her. So when he touches her, she also gives away herself, and then we find the two come in contact, and they are having a relationship. At that time, we find the white men come there, and they are just putting on a torch on them, and they are they are making fun of them. Okay, and they are asking like, Kohli, or why can't you do it again like that, and all they started asking. Okay. So then we find Kohli feels very bad about his experience, that white men's behavior with him, and then he avoids being there. Okay, so he goes to he runs from one place to another, and then we find he becomes a drunkard, and he also steals from some of the places. So due to that stealing and other things, we find he is arrested by the police, and he spends some of his time in the he spends some of his time in the prison also. And then we find after coming out from the prison, he developed a little bit little more hatred towards the people, other people. So we find he has become now more dangerous, and he loves and beats women. Okay, so he's a kind of person who want to love, but he also wants to beat. Okay, so such a kind of person, he loves at one time, and he beats them brutally at another time. So like that he is doing to many persons, and he is also not steady in his job. He takes up one job, he leaves it immediately, he leaves in 2 or 3 days and goes to a new job. Like that he is not stable in any of the things, and he is also not stable in his mind, because of which we find he is very kind at one time and very brutal at another time. Okay, and then only we find he will come in contact with Pauline. Okay, so when he first sees Pauline, he find that she will be a very kind person. Okay, so that kindness will attract Kohli, and they will be both getting married. And as you have seen in the previous chapter, when Pauline narrates her story, she will tell. Okay, so how Kohli looked very young and kind and gorgeous, and how he loved her amidst though she had a lot of disabilities, how Kohli loved her. Okay, so we find Kohli has been a very lovable person towards Pauline, and they both get married and they have children. And we find after Pecola was born, again we find Kohli coming in. Kohli loses his job, and then we find he also hates Pecola's side, and then we also find Kohli starts to drink. Okay, so he starts drinking, and then he becomes a drunkard again, and we find he is unable to be recovered at all. And what happens is, in this now we come to the present of Kohli, and we find Kohli has that unstable mind in him. So one day when Pecola was cooking in the kitchen, we find Kohli sees her, and when he sees Pecola, he doesn't think that it is Pecola, but he thinks it is Pauline or Darlin. Okay, so he is reminded of Pauline, or he is reminded of Darlin, and then he misbehaves with his own daughter. And we find Pecola doesn't know what happens to her, and she just bees there. Okay, she is just like a rock over there. And we find after that we find Miss Pauline comes there, and when Pauline finds Kohli misbehaving with having relationship with Pecola, we find she is very much angry, and she shouts at both of them, and she beats Pecola for yielding to it. But Pecola doesn't know what happened at all. Okay, so this is the circumstance here. And next we move on to the next chapter. And one more thing to note down here, girls. Here we find this chapter alone, that is about Kohli, it is told from the point of view of the father himself. Okay, so it's told from the father's point of view or an omniscient narrator here, because the all the other parts of the novel, all the other chapters of the novel are narrated by Claudia. A child cannot tell all these things, right? How a father misbehaves with a daughter. So and she's also a very young girl, very small girl who doesn't know all these things. So to give the reality, we find here we find here Toni Morrison has made this chapter alone an omniscient one, narrated by the author himself or the character himself. Okay, from the point of view of Kohli itself. Okay, so now we move on to the next one. See the dog, bow wow. Goes the dog. Do you want to play? Do you want to play with Jane? Jane, Jane, the dog, run. Okay, so this is the next chapter. Okay, so in this chapter, we come to know about the character called Soaphead. Okay, so Soaphead is an important character here. So the previous in this part, you will have all the descriptions about the church. Okay, so here we have this Soaphead. Soaphead. The person's name is Soaphead, and he is the head of an Anglican church, an independent Anglican church. Okay, and then we find he has been he was a priest in the Anglican church first, when then he was dismissed by the church. Okay, and then he became a case worker. Okay, case worker, okay, dealing about collecting details about some person or the other. Okay, so he worked like that, and then he himself made a profession for himself, and he became a reader, advisor, and interpreter of dreams. So he thought he has this power, and he advertised to the people that he has this power, and he said that he was a reader, he was an advisor, and he can interpret dreams and so on. Like that, he preached the people, and he invited many people to come to him and ask for suggestions, interpret the dreams, and so on. Okay, so then he made that as a profession, because he made a lot of money with that. And then we find he was not a very good man. Though he was a religious person once, he failed in that, and now he is doing the independent church thing. And we find in the name of the church, he is doing lot of mischievous things. Okay, so he is not a kind of a good person. He's like a fraudulent character. So when you take the character of take the character of the soaphead, he is a light skinned West Indian. He is not an African American. He is a light skinned West Indian, and he is not of pure blood, not of pure white blood, but he is of mixed blood. Okay, so like we cannot call him a mulatto here. Okay, because he has a various number of generations. They they have married within themselves, and we find there is a mixture of all the races in him. Okay, so he is not a kind of pure blood person. And then his family has always been academically and politically ambitious. Okay, so the whole family of Soaphead, they have been whatever they wanted to do, they did it academically. That is with knowledge. Okay, with a particular knowledge, they just mesmerize the people with the books, readings, and so on. Okay, and then they were all politically ambitious. They always wanted to have whole high positions in the politics of the period or the government there. And so they did all kinds of means. The whole family itself, they did all kinds of means to enter into to have superiority over the people academically or politically. And we find they were all fraudulent. Okay, and then we find the family members always try to marry the other light skinned people. Okay, so earlier in the, like, if you take Soaphead's great 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 grandfather, he is a black. But in the motive of becoming a white skinned person, they have married other light skinned persons, not the white people, other light skinned persons. Okay, so like that, they have been marrying with them. And if they don't have any other people, any other light skinned people, they married within themselves. That is the sisters, cousins. Okay, so they married within themselves. And then we find Soaphead Church's father. Okay, so Soaphead Church is a place, and we find the Soaphead's father. He was a schoolmaster, and he was born to a sadistic schoolmaster and a half Chinese mother. Okay, so Soaphead is he is also a mixture of Chinese blood also. So he was born as Elihue Mika Whitecomb. Okay, so his Christian name is Elihue Elihue Mika Whitecomb. Okay, so you can see here. Okay, so it's his name. Then he changed his name to he just changed his name as a kind of fascination, like a attractive one, into Soaphead. Okay, and then we find he married a woman called Velma. Okay, he married a woman called Velma. Okay, so here you can see Elihua Mika Waitkum. Okay, and then we find he married Velma here. Okay, and after, but we find though he married Velma, we find after 2 months, Velma broke off the marriage, and she went out of the marriage. Okay, so after Velma abandoning him, or after Velma gone away from him only, he started to come to the ministry. Okay, so you can see it here. He entered the ministry after Velma has gone. Okay, so we find after he was abandoned by his wife Velma, he took up ministry, and then he studied a lot of things like he's pursued other things like psychiatry and mysticism and so on. Okay, so after taking up all these courses, he thought that he wanted to he was eligible to become a psychiatrist for the other people, so he could treat the other people psychologically as well as religiously, and fix their problems. Okay, so he was advertising himself like that, but underneath he was not a very good person. We find after doing all these things, he took up different jobs, and then he stuck then he was finally then he finally wanted to come up as a priest. Okay, so he rented a room above Bertha Rees. Okay, Bertha Rees is an old lady, and above her house there was a room, and he rented that, and he made his own church. Okay, so he just had a kind of church like thing, and he administered many other things there. And in when he was living there, the only thing that he disgusted was the dog that was there, because the dogs are very intelligent creatures. Okay, they know who is a good person and who is a wrong person. So when that particular dog saw Soaphead, it was always barking and trying to bite him. Okay, and he know that the dog has sensed something bad about him, and so he did not like the dog, and he always wanted to kill the dog somehow. Okay, so he was waiting for such a kind of moment, and at this moment we find uh, Pecola coming to Soaphead's church. Okay, so Pecola comes here, and she asks Soaphead, and what can I do for you? He is asking, and then we find she's just standing there, and now now we find Pecola is pregnant because of Kohli. Okay, and now slowly the belly is coming out. So when she's standing there, she comes to Soaphead Church, and she's asking that the child that is inside her stomach should have blue eyes. Okay, previously when you took the character of Pauline, she also expected a very beautiful girl with blue eyes, and the same thing was passed on to Pecola, and she always wanted to have blue eyes. And now we find when she is pregnant, she again has the thought like Pauline, and she comes to Soaphead Church to find to just have a baby with a blue eyes through any kind of magic or something. So we find he's asking about that, and we know that he cannot change anything. Soaphead Church cannot do anything, and Soaphead Church also knew that he couldn't do anything. But he lies to he lies to Pecola, and he says, "Okay, I will help you. What you want the eyes to be blue, right? So I will help you." Like that, he is telling, and then he says that he has given he has always helped lot of people, and he also wants to help him. And then we find he says that he offers a kind of letter to the god. Okay, so sorry, he offers to him some meat, Pecola some meat. Okay, so he says that if the dog eats the meat, okay, so if the dog eats the meat, it will the sorry yeah, the god will hear your prayers, and he will help you to get the sorry, 1 second, girls. So he gives a poison meat to Pecola and asks her to give it to the dog. Okay, so the dog that was troubling him. So he poisoned the meat and he gave it to Pecola and asked her to give it to the dog. And he said that when you give this meat after eating this, if the dog reacts, then your wish will be granted, and if the dog doesn't react, then your wish will not be granted by god. And then we find when Pecola gives the poison meat to the dog immediately dies. And then we find Pecola is very shocked to see that, and she runs away from the place. And then we find the Berta is coming there, and she is just crying over the dead dog, and she is also telling about how that girl Pecola has killed the dog, and so on. And then we find after all this has happened, we find Soaphead writing a letter to God. So you can find the letter over here. So you can see ATT, to he who greatly ennobled human nature by creating it. Okay, and he writes, "Dear God," and he gives the purpose to familiarize you with the facts which either have escaped your notice or which you have chosen to ignore. So he is talking about himself. Okay, so he is talking about himself, and he writes a letter like an innocent man. Okay, so he is talking about the history in how his family has come to America, and how the white people were serving sorry white people took the other people as slaves. Okay, so how they lost their identity, and how they were raised as children, and how they have been struggling, that is marrying many other white skinned people, and how far they have struggled to get a status of not being a very black person. Okay, so he tells everything that happened in his life, and he also tells about uh, uh, his own it is like a confession. Okay, so how he has longed always to misuse the uh, girl children who are coming to him. Okay, so he always wanted to touch their touch the breast, like that he has been doing that. And we find he tells that he did not want to do it with Pecola, because he wanted to just use her to kill the dog. Okay, so for that alone he just used Pecola and he left her. So we find this is a letter that he writes to God, and he at last he signs, with kindest regards, I remain. Okay, your Eluha Mika Waitko. Okay, and then he just makes like fold the paper, and he puts into the envelope, and he just uses his cigarette box, and he just touching it, and then he is giving just posting it. Okay, so he is keeping it for, he's not posting it, he is keeping it for himself. Okay, so he is just using all these things. Using this letter, he makes a confession like thing to God, and he tries to say that he is not, he is a good person, and he has done everything in the correct way. Okay, so the next one is summer. So in the next season, we find we are coming to the conclusion of the novel. In this chapter, we find 1 second, girls. Okay, so now summer has come, and it is narrated by it is narrated by Claudia. Okay, so Claudia remembers about how her mother, whenever they had summer, the mother always talked about the summer storm. Okay, so summer storm that happened in 1929. Okay, so like that, so she will, whenever whenever they have the summer season, she used to get reminiscences of it, and then she used to remember the life that they lived during that uh, times. Okay, so now they are at home. They are enjoying the summer season, and usually in the Western countries, summer season will be the most pleasant season. Okay, so during this pleasant season, we find Claudia and Frida, they are enjoying themselves by having a drink, having their holidays, and they are at home. And their mother is also at home taking care of the children and so on. So they are very happy. And when they are at home, they could just overhear the conversations that are that the others, the mother and the other elderly persons are talking about Pecola. And then only they come to know that Pecola is pregnant. These two girls are coming to know that Precola is pregnant, and they are wondering who did this. Okay, they are thinking that whether it's Geraldine. And then someone says no, it is Coley, her daddy. Okay, and then we find these two are taken aback by these this particular thing. And then we find okay, and we find Kohli has now run away from the place, because he has impregnated his own daughter, and his name is everyone starts to talk about it. And so we find Kohli moves away from the place, and he just gets out of the town. And then we find Pecola is also Pecola's name is also being damaged. Okay, there is a rumor that Pecola also was a part, she also yielded, or she also wanted to have a relation with her father, like that many of them have tied many stories. And we find she is also blamed. And then she is taken out of school, she no more goes to school. And then we find the mother, Pauline, has bet her a lot of times, and every time when she beats her very brutally there. Okay, and then we find Claudia and Frida. They are just thinking. They are not talking. They are not thinking about how bad it would have been, but they are very happy that Pecola is going to have a child. Okay, and they are thinking about how the child would be, and how the womb would be, how they can see the face of the child like that, and all they are just imagining. Okay, so how the lips of the people, sorry, lips of the child can be, eye of the child can be, and how it would be like the white it will whether it would be like the white dolls or white little girls. So like that, they are just obsessed with that one, and they are also praying. Okay, they also want to offer their own help to Pecola, and but they cannot do anything, but they have to but they can pray. Okay, so they are just praying, and then we find okay, so next we find okay, so this chapter, look here comes a friend. The friend will play with Jane. The friend will play good game, play, Jane play. Okay, so now we find another character being introduced, that is a friend. And who is that friend? It is an imaginary friend of Pecola. Okay, so Pecola sees herself in the mirror, and she thinks that she has got blue eyes. Okay, so she is no longer stable in her mind. She thinks that she has got blue eyes because uh, the soaphead has promised that she will be having a blue eye child, as well as she will also, her eyes also will be turned to bluish color. So now she thinks an imaginary friend who has blue eyes, and she thinks that she also has blue eyes along with it. And then she's just admiring that, and she's talking to herself in the mirror. Okay, so she is asking. So you can see many things here. Okay, I'll just read you for one or two. Okay. So, if you are going to keep this up, I may as well go on off myself. No, don't go. What do you want to do? We could go outside and play, I guess. But it's too hot. You can take your mirror, put it in your pocket coat, and you can look yourself up and down the street. Boy, I never had thought you would be jealous. Oh, come on, you are. Okay, so like that, we find here she is talking to herself in the mirror, and she always like whatever wish she has, she is expressing through this imaginary friend character. Okay, and then here only we come to know about Kohli, and how she did not have any sense of what was going on to her when Kohli was doing all those things and so on. Okay, and then we find she also thinks herself having a blue eye, and how every people are talking about her eyes. Okay, so you can see here, what does Maureen think about your eyes? She doesn't say anything about them. Has she said anything to you about them? No, nothing. Do you like Maureen? Oh, she's all right for a half white girl. That's okay, so we find she's her inner emotions are let out here, and she is talking about all the persons. Okay, how others are admiring her eyes, but actually her eyes are not blue at all. Okay, so that's the fact, but she has become more obsessed with it, and then we find she is talking to herself. Okay, and then we find okay, so we find from this conversation, Nakoli did not abuse Pecola only for one time, but she has done it. He has abused her the second time also. Okay, and then we also find how the baby. She will also be asking how the baby's eyes will be. Will it be bluer than her, or will it be more blue enough, or how much blue enough would it be, and so on. Okay, so just her inner emotions are let out here. So now we come to the last part of the story, that is the prologue. Okay, so this is the prologue. Okay, so it was a little black girl yearned for the blue eyes of a little white girl, and a horror at the heart of her yearning is exceeded only by the evil of fulfillment. We saw her sometimes, Frida and I, after the baby came too soon and died, after the gossip and the slow wagging of heads. She was so sad to see. Grown people looked away. Children, those who weren't frightened by her, laughed outright. The damage done was total. She spent her days, her tendril, sap green days, walking up and down, her head jerking to the beat of the drummer, so distant only could hear. Elbows bent, hands on shoulder, she flailed her arms like a bird in an eternal, grotesquely futile effort to fly, beating in the air, a winged but grounded bird intent of blue void it could not reach. Okay, so this is about Pecola. Okay, so she here is the girl who always longed for the blue eyes, but she could just only get the evil fulfillment. Okay, her life became ruined. Her life was ruined by many male members, and her own passion to get the blue eyes. Okay, that is the society who said that the bluest eye is beautiful, has killed the innocent girl, as well as the innocence in her, as well as it has destroyed the girl's life. Okay, so we find the baby that Pecola carried, it was delivered prematurely, and it died very soon as after it was born. And then we find many people were gossiping about her character and so on, and later it all subsided. But many people just ignored Pecola, her sight, and they all branded her as a bad girl. And then we find even the children always laughed at her, making fun at her. Okay, so she was a kind of unknown person here. Okay, and then we find in this you have to note down, girls, when Pecola was pregnant, and when everyone was telling bad things about her, Claudia and Frida, they were offering prayers, and similarly they were also offering some, they were collecting seeds. Okay, seeds they could sell and get money. Okay, so they were collecting the sunflower and other the marigold seeds. And here we find when they are all when others were talking negative about Pecola, they prayed and they said that they will plant the seeds that they have for Pecola. They would sacrifice the seeds for Pecola. Okay, to the baby to be born in a very good manner. Okay, so we find they are sacrificing it by putting it in the sand. They wanted it to grow, but the flowers never grew. Okay, so you can see here our flowers never grew. I was convinced that Frida was right, that I had planted them too deeply. Okay, so this word is very important. They have planted the seeds very deeply. Okay, you should have a correct level. You have to, in at a correct level of the soil only, you have to plant the seeds. Then only it will come outside the ground. So here also we find the thought about the blue eyes have gone very deep into Pecola, which did not allow her to grow, or which did not allow her to live her life. Okay, and then we find Kohli died in the workhouse. Okay, and Sammy also he left the town long ago. And then we find now Pecola, Pecola's way of dressing, her language, and everything has become very very different. Okay, so she becomes an awkward person there. Okay, and then we find. Okay, and now when I see her searching the garbage for what? The thing we assassinated? I talk about how I did not plant the seeds too deeply. How it was fault of the earth, the land of our town. I even think now that the land of the entire country was hostile to marigolds that year. The soil is bad for certain kinds of flowers. Certain seeds it will not nurture. Certain fruit it will not bear. And when the land kills of its own volition, we acquiesce and say the victim had no right to live. We are wrong, but it doesn't matter. It's too late. At least on the edge of my town, among the garbage and the sunflowers of my town, it's too much, it's much, much, much too late. So, this whole paragraph sums up the life of Pecola, and we find she is searching the garbage. Okay, so searching the garbage means how her mind has become. Okay, so now she has become a kind of lunatic person who is searching for all these kinds of things. And then we find in the previous paragraph we find Claudia and Frida telling that they rooted the seeds very deeply, but it's not their fault alone. It's the earth's fault, that is the fault of the town, which the fault of the society, which always admired the only the bluer skies and not the black people. And because of that reason only, Pecola always wanted to have a blue eye, to be loved by someone. Okay, and that love, that earning for love only cost her all these things. So Toni Morrison tells about this in the metaphor of the seed and the soil. Okay, thank you, girls.